I'm not going to beat around the bush here. We just saw some significant leaks for the upcoming Google Pixel Fold 2, and I'm going to tell you all about everything we know so far, so let's dive right in. In the interest of full transparency, I want to make sure that you guys know that all the leaks I'm about to tell you about in this video related to the Pixel Fold 2 are based off an engineering validation test device. So when you're developing a new smartphone, you start off with a prototype, which most of you are probably familiar with. The next stage after that is the engineering validation test device. And then there are a bunch more steps before you get to the final device, which then heads to the manufacturing phase. So in other words, this device that we're basing our leaks off of is pretty early on in the development cycle. That means anything I'm about to tell you could change. Right off the bat, we can tell that this engineering sample of the Google Pixel Fold 2 looks very different from the Google Pixel Fold. The outer display of the Pixel Fold 2 looks to be a lot slimmer than what we saw on the Pixel Fold. If you remember, the original Pixel Fold had a very wide aspect ratio on the outside, making it look a lot like a passport. Meanwhile, something like the Galaxy Z Fold 5 had a very slim outer display, making it look a lot more like a candy bar when it's folded. So the Pixel Fold 2 appears to be sort of in the middle of these two types of displays, very similar to what we saw on the OnePlus Open. Still, this is a big departure for Google when it comes to the way that its displays look on its foldable phones. This aspect ratio change is really interesting because one of the problems we saw with the Pixel Fold was that apps had trouble with that really wide display. A lot of apps aren't optimized for tablets and other large screen devices, and so the display of the Pixel Fold had a lot of trouble with that. So with the Pixel Fold 2 looking to slim up the experience a little bit, it's likely that you'll see a lot more app compatibility, like we saw on other devices in the foldable sector, including, once again, the OnePlus Open and the Galaxy Z Fold 5. Unfortunately, we didn't get a photo of the inside of the display, but the source who provided this photo did tell us that the outer bezel is a lot slimmer when you unfold the device, and there is now a display cutout for the interior selfie camera instead of Google putting the selfie camera into a thick bezel in the top of the phone. That's a good decision. It's going to make the Pixel Fold 2 much more like its competitor devices on the market, but it's also going to be a bit of an eyesore for people who got very used to the completely uninterrupted display of the original Pixel Fold. Of course, one of the most significant differences we can see with this photo is a new camera module on the back of the device. If you'll remember, the Pixel Fold had a very similar camera bar to what we've seen on every other Pixel smartphone that's launched since the Pixel 6. But the Pixel Fold 2 appears to abandon that design. Now, once again, this is an engineering sample, so things could change significantly between now and when we see this actually launched to the public. But the fact that Google didn't use a camera bar style for this engineering sample seems to suggest that we're not going to get a similar camera bar as we've seen on other Pixels. We can't tell you anything about the hardware of the camera on the back of the phone, but we can see clearly that it is a quad lens system. We assume that's going to be your standard wide angle lens, as well as an ultra wide, and then a periscope telephoto. This is what we saw on the Pixel Fold and what we've seen on other high-level Pixels in the past few years. There is that fourth lens though, which we're not quite sure what it is. It could be a temperature sensor like we saw on the Pixel 8 Pro. It could be something else. We're not really sure, but we will probably find that out in the coming weeks and months. Our source also gave us some information about what's going on inside the sample. Most notably, this sample is running on what we expect to be called Tensor G4. Now, this is a big deal because if you'll remember, the original Pixel Fold came with Tensor G2, and then only a few months after it launched, the Pixel 8 series came out with Tensor G3, meaning people who spent all that money on the original Pixel Fold only a few months later found out that their phone was not as powerful as the latest Pixel on the market. Hopefully that means that won't happen this year because this phone appears to be running on the same processor we expect to launch in the Pixel 9 series. If the Pixel Fold 2 does come with Tensor G4 instead of Tensor G3, that dramatically changes when we expect to see the Pixel Fold 2 actually launched to consumers. If you remember, the original Pixel Fold launched at Google I/O in May of 2023, so one would hazard to guess that the Pixel Fold 2 will also launch in May of 2024, once again at Google I/O. But Google probably wouldn't launch Tensor G4 at Google I/O and then launch the Pixel 9 series with that same processor in October later in the year. This heavily suggests that Google might launch the Pixel Fold 2 and the Pixel 9 series at the same time in October, all with the same processor. Of course, we can't say that for certain. It's possible that Google could change its mind and launch Tensor G3 with the Pixel Fold 2 and launch that in May. But considering this engineering sample is so far behind the trajectory we'd expect for a phone that's only coming out in a few months, we're going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say that we won't expect this at Google I/O this year. Finally, our source told us that this engineering sample is running with a whopping 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's the most RAM that we've ever seen in a Pixel device. But what is all that RAM going to give you? In the case of the Pixel Fold 2, running all those apps on two displays is something that takes a lot of horsepower, and having a lot of RAM could help with that, especially with smooth transitions from opening and closing the device and apps jumping from one display to the other. And also, multitasking. With all those apps open on your taskbar on your Pixel Fold 2, having all that RAM will be incredibly helpful for giving you a smooth experience. That's all I can tell you so far about the Pixel Fold 2 based on this image and the information given to us by our anonymous source. Of course, we can expect a ton more leaks to come in the coming weeks and months because Google runs a pretty leaky ship when it comes to these kinds of things. So get excited for more information about the Pixel Fold 2, the Pixel 9 series, the Pixel 8a, and all things Pixel that we expect in 2024. Of course, in order to see all that, you're going to have to stay tuned to the Android Authority channel. So I'll see you in the next video.